here on RCI TV, continuing the LMU Sprint Championship here in Portimao. The Algarve International Circuit playing host to the next round of this exciting foray into LMU. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Cupid himself, Jesse Lee, joined by the beautiful Katrina and the always dashing Ted Edwards behind the cameras. Happy Valentine's Day for everybody out there that participates. There's going to be no love lost out there on the racetrack tonight. Maybe some flowers exchanged in the end after all. Who knows? But we are in Portugal, the southern coast of Portugal as well. The weather playing no factor for now, but we'll get more into that in just a bit. Katrina, welcome in. Welcome to Spain, and welcome to one of the trickiest tracks in Le Mans Ultimate.
Yes, Jesse, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be at Portugal, a track that obviously lends to many different corners and participate. Yeah, that's good start. Good start. Portugal, the track, the circuit. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Portimao would have caught a lot of people off guard. There's not a lot of different sims that specialize in this circuit. If you're familiar with AMS, you may have been here before, iRacing as well, but beyond that, not quite so much. It's a newer circuit, only completed in the past 20 years or so, when you consider that we're talking mid to late 2000 knots. That's God, that made me feel really old saying that out loud. But never mind. By the by, it is one of the newer circuits out there. It's held many different sort of racing series over the years, all of which very prestigious indeed. World Superbikes has been here. TCR, of course, Grand Prix motorbike. Not to mention, I think the GT2 series came here. The FIA original GT series back in the late noughties as well. DTM, in fact, were here a few years ago, just to name a few. And of course, famous for hosting the WEC 6 Hours of Portimao for several years, which I do believe is how we have it in this sim. Let's get you familiar with Autodromo Internacional Algarve. Algarve named for the region of Portugal it is in, of course. Well, it is an FIA Grade 1 circuit. 16 years old. It's not even 20 years old. As it turns out, that makes me feel better about my age, of course. But beyond that, it's a 4.6 kilometer circuit, 2.89 miles if you prefer old school measurements. Lewis Hamilton, the fastest man around here, did some hammer time back in 2020, a 1 minute 18. We won't quite be getting those speeds here.
No, absolutely, but speeds we will be getting set at the minute from the LMGT3s out on track doing their qualifying.
Right, you are. Split qualifying, as it always is here on LMU. The LMGT3s, as you rightly called it, are out first, all on the racetrack. Dan Van Zutphen leading the way, despite the fact, Katrina, a minute ago, he was in here telling us to not expect anything particularly spectacular, though he also admitted that the McLaren might be in sort of plus territory with the BOP, though.
Yeah, he definitely maybe led us a bit astray with his use of wording that he chose, but you are right. It seems like at the minute the McLarens seem to be doing stuff in qualifying. Hopefully we can see some of the Ferraris come back and set a lap and challenge for them top spots on the pole positions.
Speaking of, Vic goes top of the board in the BMW, a 44.775, good enough for pole, nearly a quarter of a second behind. Now is Dan Van Zutphen. Zutphen was a little bit concerned, I'd say a lot concerned, by Grant Willemont, who has sort of been the championship rival thus far, of course, winning the very first round of the series back in Bahrain. Ryan Gill has gone to the top of the board in their BMW, a 44.69, as we see Lindner here flashing the car in front of them, trying to sort of get them out of the way so their lap isn't ruined. They might actually get a little bit of a tow here, and that will aid them down this long straight. But Dan Van Zutphen goes back to provisional pole on the McLaren, a 44.577. And you know what that tells us up here in the booth? The track's improving.
Yeah, definitely. That line is becoming warm. Tires are getting warmed up, and cars are feeling a little bit nicer for everybody to set their lap times.
We'll see just how low the lap times go before the hypercars get out there. Of course, split quali, LMGT3s only for the time being, but the second that clock hits 10 minutes, that will release the hypercars and withdraw all of the LMGT3s back down the pit lane. Van Zutphen, Gil, Vic, the top three. Lindner, Willemot, the top five. Nyring, Verstrepen, Malcolm, Cotton, Watson, Beckett. And if you're not familiar with the number 70 McLaren of Watts, that's because that's a split 2 driver. They've merged the splits this week, split 1 and split 2. There are several hypercars added to the grid, but the one LMGT3 for this round, and that is Watts. The way they're going to do the championship points, yet to be determined, but I would hazard the guess that they're not going to want to mess with either championship. They'll keep them separate, but they will race together, kind of like how Hypercar and LMGT3 do anyway. They share a racetrack, Katrina, but they don't get points in each of their respective series, only their own.
Yeah, which makes sense, like you say. Let's not mess around with the standings that are currently there, but allow them to have a race on the track with the others.
Indeed, indeed. And of course, a very special welcome in to everyone watching us at home on the RCI family of networks. We welcome you in on Cupid's favorite day of the year. We hope wherever you are and whatever you're doing that you're having a lovely evening. We thank you for sharing a little bit of your Friday evening with us here on RCI TV. Ryan Gill, currently the quickest, the 44.070. 3.5 tenths near as makes no difference. Back to Van Zutphen in the 95 McLaren. Klaus Nyring has jumped all the way up to third, 0.4 tenths off of the overall pace. Ryan Gill showing a little bit of that preseason speed, Katrina, we saw from last year at Sebring, where well, let's be completely fair here. He demolished the field. He might as well have been an LMP2 car with how much quicker he was than everyone else. Showing a little bit of that today here in quali. That's a pretty big gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, he was flying in the preseason race. We haven't seen quite the same pace set from Ryan yet in this series, but hopefully today could be the change.
Ryan has sort of lamented, he chuckled to himself. I talked to him post-race a week ago. He talked about 3 weeks of just utter disappointment by the driver, the 31. He all he could do was really chuckle a little bit and say, you know, it's gone so bad. He realizes, he knows, as he's going to go ahead and pull off after his most recent lap attempt, Ryan Gill knows that he has the ability, the pace to come up here and compete at the top echelon of LMGT3. He's just not been given the opportunity. He's been out of position on the start. He's got wonky penalties in the past. He's been involved in incidents, and it's just never come to fruition is what's happened. And Gill today, unabated, has shown us a little bit of what he's actually capable of doing. He may now realize the championship is not going to go their way, but salvaging a little bit of pride, get a couple of wins. I mean, you know, we talked a little bit last week about, would you rather have race trophies or a championship trophy? Obviously, you'd rather have the championship trophy. Most people would, but if you know you're not going to have the championship trophy, you might as well go win some smaller cups anyway.
Yeah, that's it. Take the small wins whilst you still have them, as we see the remainder of the GT3 cars out on the track setting their lap times.
Hypercars will be making their way onto the racetrack. All flying laps for LMGT3 will still count, of course. And they will be going around to finish up their lap. Grant Willemot set the quickest of all first sector. Lost a ton of time in sector number 2 and realized it's not on. They're going to dip down to the pit lane. Willemot will start 4th place. Ryan Gill is either going to be on pole or at least on the front row. It was a personal best first sector, a outright session best in sector number 2 for the Dutch driver Dan Van Zutphen as he comes around turn number 15 onto the front straight, and he's ducking down the pit lane. Didn't have enough of it in there and has called it quits. Ryan Gill, his first pole of the season, outdoes Dan Van Zutphen, and here are the hypercars.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see what kind of lap time we're setting around Portimao with these hypercars.
Mentioned earlier that the splits were merged. They will, in all likelihood, fight it out in their own championship. But we're joined by John Becker, who has dominated split number 2. We showed you the championship standings as of a week ago at the end of last week's broadcast. And John Becker in the Whelen Cadillac had been running away with it in the hypercar class in split 2. I am quite curious, though, how far up the grid the dominant Becker can go in split number 1.
Yeah, it'll be good to see where they sit in the top split setting and how well they can do against some of the faster paced drivers.
Where do you think that they'll be? Because we know that they've utterly dominated their split, but that's split 2. This is split 1. Presumably the quickest drivers on offer. Do we think in middle of the table, sort of top third? Where would you place them, just based on what we already know? And of course, they haven't set a valid lap yet. But where would you reckon they'll end up here in quali?
I'm gonna take a pot guess and say anywhere from 10th to 15th.
Okay, so sort of mid to the back of the table. I'm going to go the opposite direction. I like that guess, but I'm going to go the opposite direction. I think they're in the top third is what's going to happen. I think they're going to excite here in quali, and I think maybe the Cadillac can do something we haven't seen, because we do not, up until today, we didn't have a Cadillac in split 1. We didn't have any sort of barometer, and I think maybe we'll see them in the top third. You're taking the sort of the lower third. I'm taking the top third. Nobody took the middle, and watch that be where they are, because we're just broadcasters. What do we know? Zeno Van Dries out in the Lamborghini. Well, frustrating week perhaps at Fuji a week ago, but back at it again. A lot of drivers had a frustrating week. I think a lot of mechanical and disconnection issues at Fuji. Everyone just hoping for the opposite here today.
Yeah, hoping for some solid pace and, you know, not too many accidents or incidents within the pack. Keep the clean racing, and hopefully everybody has a fun time.
Well, if you're unfamiliar with Portimao, Circuit Algarve, let's take you for a lap around here. 15 turns. Primera, the first turn. Turn 2, unnamed. Lagos into turn 3. And you go up the hill into 4. Very blind corner. The blindest of all the corners. Reminds you of Road America if you've ever raced there. Racing up the hill. Down the hill again. Back down to Torrey Vip. Turn number 5. Almost a hairpin. Not quite a full hairpin. Doesn't go full 90, but gets very close. Turn 6, another blind dog leg, but not nearly as scary. Just follow the curb up to 7 and be prepared to slow that bad boy down into turn 8. Samsung going through that right now. And up the hill again before you fall again. Sounds a little bit like a roller coaster going through Craig Jones, turn number 9. And up to the aptly named turn 10, Portimao. I treat this as a sort of almost double apex. Some drivers like to cut it off. But either way, you want to be over near the red there through turn number 11, through 12, and up through 13. Once again, not a true hairpin, but a blind corner. Easy to go off into the dirt. I've done it a million times. Sagra's the 14th turn. Sort of easy to get it wrong there. Brake early, brake late. It's going to be a bad time. Turn 15. Weird camber here through part of the corner. You want to be over the curb through Gallop and through Gallop onto the front straight for some kilometers, 2.8 miles, and that is a lap around Portimao. It is very roller coaster-esque, and just riding on board is one of the few tracks that I think illustrates itself very well, Katrina. Difficult to look at, let alone drive, with all of the elevation changes. The grip is never where you left it.
Yeah, absolutely. With sitting so low down in the cars as well, the visibility on some of the corners is just practically not there. So to know the track is very important. You know where you've got to be, where you've got to place in your car.
Kevin Boss has joined us in chat to say, sorry I had to miss this round for work. I like this track in LMP2 at least. I had a fun battle with Kevin Boss here in Prototypes. In fact, just a few months ago when LMU came out, it was fun indeed. We used pitch strategy to outbox each other, and we were none the wiser. We ended up back together again anyway. So it do be like that some of the time. Andy King's joined us as well, cheering on Grant Willimon, who we saw qualify inside the top 5 in the LMGT3 field. But the hypercars on the track now, coming to the end of qualifying. Nearly 3 minutes left. Van Driesch, the quickest in the 63 Lamborghini, a 1:31.7. Pettick in P2, looking ever strong in that number 51A, of course, a Ferrari. Fazkis in 3rd place, keeping the good name of Peugeot inside the top 5. They've been carrying the banner all season. Rodriguez in the Alpine doing the same for that manufacturer. Kirton is your top 5. Sirich, Badowski, Ramos, Quizma, Octane rejoins us in 10th. Keller, Martins, Varga is one of those drivers, Peter Varga that is, that joined us from Split 2. McDonger, who I did not expect to see on the racetrack this evening, but Jack McDonger is with us. Whittle, Roche, Becker, and Kaslar are your 18 cars. You'll see that Roche, Becker, and Kaslar have not taken time, and that's particularly concerning from the 83, who's in this championship fight. Never mind.
Yeah, speak it and it'll come true. Just at the fastest lap, but has been immediately overtaken by Petty.
Kevin Boss poking fun at the prancing bull, or the raging bull, I suppose, saying that Van Driesch is the car's running and it's on pole. Very funny indeed. If you're not, Van Driesch will try and upstage you there, so be careful, Kevin Boss. You have to share a track with that man some week in the future. Pettick, 2 provisional pole, 31.566. That's about 1.5 tenths quicker than Kapslar, but the Ferraris, the flying Ferraris, the prancing horses, up at the front of the field again. A familiar sight indeed with Van Driesch and Fazkis in a Lamborghini and a Peugeot respectively. Easy for me to say. And Rodriguez also in the top 5 with his Alpine, a contingent, an armada, a insert World War II tank joke here. Kirton, Ramos, Sirich, and Badowski all in Porsches, all together. What are they called, Katrina? What is that called when there's a bunch of tanks together? What is that called? A division? A division of Panzers, 6th through 9th.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to see different manufacturers up there, but the fact that we have them all in a little convoy on the track at the minute, I wonder if anybody will come in and slot themselves in the middle.
And I'll tell you something else. You're pretty right on with your guess. Bilkor Becker is in the 311 Whelen Cadillac. They're in 16th place. You wonder why we have multiple splits, at least to start a championship, and that's could be potentially why. And that's not just any hypercar from the Split 2. That's the championship dominator in that category. But McDonger and Whittle behind them, though, and everybody still working at it. All flying laps count, of course. It's not like other sims where timer ticks to 0 and it's over. Everyone, if you're on a valid lap, you get to finish said valid lap. Pettick will hold on to the lead for the time being. Peter Varga looking to improve and hasn't done, as they were slow in all the sectors, and I believe they're going to call it a day for the number 50, of course, Ferrari hypercar. Other ones out there continuing, trying to improve. Maciej Sirich in the Porsche Penske, one of those cars, in the middle of the division.
Yeah, absolutely. Just trying to improve on their lap time currently.
See if they can. Didn't look good through the first sector and maybe not even the second sector. What does look good is the Cadillac. John Becker, I'm going to shut up a minute because I just need some America in my life, and I think you guys need to get educated at home as well. I don't know about you, but I'm cross-eyed. John Becker improving in Sector 1 and in Sector 2. This is going to move him up several positions, could potentially threaten the top 10. How far up will he be? Across the line, he only gains 1 spot. I misread how much he was up. Decimal place in the wrong place. Look, we don't do some things in America very great, one of which is decimal points. John Becker is going to spin it around here. Qualifying was over for them anyway, but they did get the car up into 15th. Pretty massive improvements for them in every sector, but only good enough for the 1 spot, but still will make you feel a little bit better. I believe Kuizma has just gained a spot there on their last lap. Marco Badowski is not on a quicker lap. Nicholas Keller has parked the 94 Total Energies Peugeot. And I think that's just going to be about it, as Peter Roche is also throwing in the towel here. And I think AF Corsa's 51 Ferrari, driven by Pettick, is going to be your pole sitter, a 31.556. Qualifying complete for both of the classes today. Here are the results, starting with the Hypercar class. David Pettick, Adam Kapslar, Zeno Van Driesch, the top three. Barnabas Facekiss sharing the second row. Michel Rodriguez, Louis Kierton, Mikel Ramos, Maciej Sirik, Marco Badowski, Peter Roche, your top 10. Outside the top 10 with work to do, Billy Octane, Nicholas Keller, Miguel Martins, Nico Kuzma, John Becker, Peter Varga, Jack McDonger, Richard Withel, the 18 hypercars that will race today. We saw them when we came on air, but just a refresher and a reminder of how the LMGT3 field fared in qualifying. Ryan Gill, a 44 flat, good enough for pole, over Dutch driver Dan van Zutphen, Klaus Neyring, Grant Willemot in the second row, Phil Vick, Lindner the next row, Christoph Strepe, Matt Malcolm, Tom Watts, Andy Cotton, the 10 cars that will race in LMGT3. With David Beckett, of course, as the 11th. There's always another page. If there's one thing John Dalton has taught me, there's always another page. Well, I got to ask, what did you take away from qualifying right there? We've got the same players in most of the normal positions. We'll get to these championship standings in a second, but Katrina, I'm curious what you think. What did you make of qualifying? Ryan Gill, the standout for me personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, it's nice to see Gil back on top. Hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing happens in his lap one and, it gets taken away from him straight away.
Championship points looking a little bit like this, starting off with Hypercar. Adam Kapslar leading 115. Decent lead over Peter Roche in second with 78 points. 76 back to David Pettick. Michel Rodriguez in fourth place. Barnabas Facekiss, the top five. It is deadlocked essentially from second all the way back to sixth place Louis Kierton. They are all one position matters for them. Louis Kierton gets one position over everyone else, and it is humongous in their championship hopes there. A little bit further back, Maciej Sirik, Daniel Gottschalk, Philippe Brecha, Nick Cooper, the top 10. Zeno Van Driesch in 11th, Marco Badowski, Nico Kuzma, Mikel Ramos, the top 14. Francesco Fonza, Billy Octane, Miguel Martins, Theobout Roscom, Boris Shekajev, Raphael Huell, Jack McDonger, and Nicholas Keller, the 22 cars that have attempted a race this season. Some of those cars have retired from the championship. Some are just not here this week. Others are late signups. Moving on from Hypercar to LMGT3, Christoph Strepe has done a whale of a job getting to where they are in the championship. Did not have a great Fuji round, admittedly, but finished second and second leading up to that point. Everybody else has had a checkered reliability, and that's why they're at the top over Phil Vick in P2. Good to see Phil Vick in a podium position like that, to consistency paying off. 2 podiums and a fourth. Klaus Neyring in third place. Wasn't even with us. Didn't get points in round number one. They might have been with us, but they didn't get points either way. But has since gone on to win and podium the subsequent 2 races, and now they're up to third. Grant Willemot in fourth place, despite the hot start, has had a bit of a mare as of late and has drifted down off the podium spots. Lindner in fifth, Ryan Gill still, despite the frustration, in sixth place, and of course on pole today. Dan van Zutphen has had a late sign up, but has made little qualms about immediately finding success, and is back to try and do it again today. Are up in seventh place. Buckley in eighth. Harper Jackson, who I do not believe is with us this week. Daniel Beckett rounds out your top 10. Behind them, we've got Cotton, Sinney, and Matt Malcolm. Let me guess, there's another page. Nope, not another page. Well, there you have it. Kevin Boss also knows the struggles of having an extra page, 5 pages on Monday's championship standings. Boss, you're a real one. Thank you for being there with us. On the grid for tonight's race, going to throw it back to Katrina. Katrina, as we get ready to go racing, what are we looking for here? It's a little bit bigger field with the two splits merged. Do you think there'll be a problem with there being two splits of cars in the same race today?
No, I don't think so. I think this track is nice and wide and it allows lots of, clean overtaking. So hopefully we shouldn't see that being a problem in today's race with the added splits.
Well, she's calling it right now. There's going to be absolutely no problem. I think it's going to be pandemonium, but not amongst the two classes. I think it's going to be inter-class issues. I don't think we're going to see many incidents involving both classes today. We've seen that in recent weeks. Today, though, I think it's going to be more fights in your own class that are going to lead to issues. 60 minutes here at Portimao, and we are green. The Hypercars released, and we're all racing down to turn number one, looking really good. A little bit more dicey for the LMGT3 field, still 3 wide for the Hypercars, 4 or 5 cars back, but they just about get it settled, or do they, as they're still 2 and 3 wide, fighting up to turn number 3. Clear breakaway for Pettit. Capsular is going to be rear gunner for the Ferrari manufacturer teammate as Van Dries settles into third, and the fighting behind them with Michel Rodriguez and Fazekiss is certainly on display. We've seen that throughout this entire season long. Fazekiss and Rodriguez now the one getting the pressure as Ramos and Roche are still side by side. Everybody fighting for position. You'll see, because the Hypercars are getting stacked up, LMGT3 is still right behind them half a lap into this race.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just chomping at the bit to, for clean air, clean space. Everybody seems to settle down slightly into a form.
Everybody just about getting down to single file here at the end of lap number 1, rounding Sagres into Galp, or at least the leaders will be. We're still in turn number 13 ourselves, working our way up to turn 14. But that's how big the field actually is for this race, is there's so many cars, they're everywhere, and they're sorting themselves out quite nicely indeed. Ryan Gill has held on to the lead in LMGT3. Grant Willamont up to P2. Something has happened to Dan Van Zutphen. They're not in the top 4 or so. Are they even on the racetrack, or are they? No, they're certainly not out in front of the lead. Something has happened to Dan Van Zutphen. They're not in the top 3 or 4. Ryan Gill still leading. No, he is in the lead. He sold me a dummy here. That's where Dan Van Zutphen's gone. He's in the lead of LMGT3 over Lindner. Ryan Gill's down to third. Billy Octane spun off the track in between 1 and 2. And here come the leaders in the LMGT3 field, and this is a bit dicey. Van Zutphen has taken the lead from Gill. Lindner's gotten through as well, and it's a 2 McLaren breakaway with Gill, Willamont, and Vic, your top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like the 2 McLarens got a fantastic start in the GT3s against Gill, but I'm not counting Gill out with this pace that he had in qualifying. So hopefully we see lots of racing within the classes, like you said, Jesse.
I think that's exactly what we're going to see here. Not sure what happened to Billy Octane, but we've seen that car have a spot of bother in the past, and be curious to know if that was contact or sort of a solo spin. It could go either way, and often does here at a racetrack like this with so much elevation change, so many blind corners, off camber. I mentioned earlier, the grip's never where you left it. What do I mean by that? The car is unloaded and loaded at weird times, and unless you know what you're expecting, it's super easy to light the tires up whenever they're not loaded or weighed down, and you're spinning that tire, and that is not conducive to traction, and you go around even in cars that would have a traction control system. Bear in mind, all cars have to come down pit lane tonight, but none of them are required to take tires. They are limited by their virtual energy, and that is what will pull them to pit lane, not a pit road requirement per se, a technical limitation of the virtual energy system will.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll see anybody deciding to go for tire changes today.
I will say, I did race an LMP2 here a while back, and you can do a double stint here on the tires. You wouldn't want to, but it might be worth the grip in some cases around here. There's a lot of tracks where it may not be beneficial. It certainly wouldn't be, and it's still a roll of the dice here. I don't think we'll see that many do it, though I say that, and we've seen at least one car go for tires every single week. So could it be the extra little wild card that one of the teams need? We'll have to see. This is the fight for not last in the actually it's the fight for not last. Billy Octane trying to work their way around the Ferrari, and you're not seeing double. Actually, take that back, they are seeing double. They're the same car. 50 and 51 respectively, but other than that, absolutely identical.
Yeah, it does seem that they're quite identical on pace at the minute, also not seeming to be able to get that overtake done by Billy Octane.
Billy Octane and Jack McDonger have a long history together. They should know how each other drives. They've driven together. They've driven against each other. Always a fun race when Octane and the Dong get together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dan Van Zutphen continues to lead in LMGT3 over Ryan Gill. Something's happened to Lindner. They've lost not only second place, but the entire podium. Grant Willemot through in the identical 31 BMW. Lindner back to fourth. Phil Vick in fifth place. Gill is catching Dan Van Zutphen for the lead of this race. So whatever happened to Gill that sent him back there, the car's obviously not damaged, and it may have just been some sort of avoidance. Maybe Van Zutphen got the jump on them early, but the pace from Gill coming back in that class. Pettick leads Capslar, Dreesh, Fazekis, Rodriguez, the top three, or top five, I should say. I can count. Listen, in my home life, counting is not my thing. That's my partner's thing. I am not even allowed to count, and you've just learned why. I confuse 3 and 5, two very different numbers. The point I'm making is the top five quite separated from each other by more than a second. The fight very much on, though, in LMGT3 for the moment. Just as I say that, though, Capslar did catch Pettick by about 3/10 that last sector.
Yeah,
Don't let me do math, Katrina, please.
Okay, I'll try. I'm not very good with math either, so between us, I'm sure we can not math together. It does look like that Caspar has brought back up that gap that there was between them. So either, you know, Pettick maybe just had a little corner issue or something, and the gap has been closed up.
I mentioned earlier that McDonger and Octane were fighting for not last. That doesn't make sense unless you're an English speaker, and even then it probably didn't. But this is what I'm talking about. There was a car behind them, and it's Richard Whittle, who seems to be struggling in the BMW M-Team WRT machine here. As they've gone off the racetrack. They didn't crash, but they went off the racetrack. Car looks like it's a struggle to handle right now. I don't think that's damage either. I think that's just setup that's causing that car to handle as ill as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully they can find some pace back into that car and, you know, come back up to the bottom of the pack.
Hopefully so. No real issues. This is the first race since Bahrain that we've made it pretty clean throughout the first couple of minutes of the race. And it was definitely scary at Monza. It was scarier at Fuji, despite having at least 6 more cars than we had at Fuji, and it being somewhat of a tighter racetrack in some design. It's actually been a cleaner race thus far. Mentioned earlier, and you may have noticed, eagle-eyed viewers at home, very overcast, and I'm not on the Portuguese tourist board or the Algarve tourist board, but I will say this is quite unusual around here. It's usually a sunny oasis. It's very cloudy here today, but we are not expecting rain to reach us in time. So it's going to be a completely overcast race, but unlikely to have any meaningful precipitation.
Yeah, absolutely. As far, I don't think we've seen any rain, so we are just continuing on the no rain path at the minute.
Well, they have
Hopefully,
wet.
maybe we see rain soon.
Well, they have wet tires. Mind everyone at home. So that's not the issue. The issue would be, well, we talked about tires, and you don't want to have to come down and take tires if you don't have to because it's a longer stop. And obviously, if it rained, you'd have to come down and put the wet weather tires on the car. So that's removing what Katrina's saying before I interrupted her rudely. I do apologize for that. Is that it's removing a variable, and that's to the benefit of all the driver's sanity. It's hard enough to drive the car, let alone strategize while you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be thinking about, keeping the pace and everything, and then you see the clouds in the sky and you think, oh my, is it going to rain? Is it not going to rain? Like, if it does start to rain, how heavy is it going to be? Is it worth changing tires, or, will it dry up quite quick? And all of these things going through your head whilst you're racing a car around a track is, yeah, a lot.
Especially a racetrack as complex as Algarve, it's not great because you don't really have a moment's rest. The only real time that you have time to think about it is the pit straight, which it is quite long. But in my experience racing here, it's never seemed long enough to get anything done, to get the numbers punched in or get your head around strategy. But everywhere else, it's either curving or the track's bending away from you. You got to pay very fastidious attention. But pit lane, or excuse me, the pit straight, the only place that anybody has time to breathe. Ryan Gill was more than a second or so back of Van Zutphen, but now is caught back up. That lap, an additional 3/10 taken out of the lead. The WRT BMW looking quite quick indeed, has now completely caught up and erased the gap to Van Zutphen here. And this is a position we've seen Van Zutphen in, being pressured, and they withstood the pressure from a week ago. But can they do it today against a completely different opponent? They certainly will not have a big notebook on each other, despite the fact that they both raced in this series. They haven't really raced against each other at all, as far as I know, ever.
No, I think you're right there. It's a new territory for both of them.
I'm gonna add an additional sort of proposition on top of this. If Van Zutphen wrecks Ryan Gill, I think Van Zutphen's fired from RCI, I think, is what I'm hearing in my ear. Oh, no.
Maybe that's going through his head, Jesse, when he's in the car on the track and Ryan's right behind him in his rearview mirror. Maybe that's what he's thinking about.
Counterpoint, if Van Zutphen wrecks Ryan Gill, I will pay Van Zutphen real money. How about that? What's worth more to him? Being on the broadcast team or actual cash?
We see just as we see Pettick coming past some of the GT3 traffic.
Ooh. Gapslar got really close to that McLaren right there. Might have touched just a little bit. Track's wide, but the racing line, well, there's only one of them. It's not quite like Fuji where you can get away with it by going wide, etc. Here, there is an racing line, and you have to be on it. And, of course, the clag and the marbles that are thrown out are also not conducive to grip as well. So sort of space at a premium, and sharing that space still is a priority as well. Nearly went wrong, but didn't there. As Capsar not only was able to get around the outside, is closing the gap down on Pettick. So we've got a fight. We're about to have a fight anyway for the top spot in both categories.
Yeah, absolutely. Just going through traffic, making up that time. If you catch him on the good part and you can get by at the same time.
Tricky part of the race, this, going through the LMGT3 field for the first time with the hypercars. This is as compact as the LMGT3 field will be. And if you're racing with the lead like Pettick is, you've got to be very careful the way you pick your way through here. You can't win the race by how you pass these cars, but you can damn well lose it. And I think some of these hypercar drivers will have known that. I think Capsar is getting the benefit a little bit that Pettick is being a little extra sort of picky the way that he's going through here, erring on the side of caution, surely. But that's certainly helping Capslar get through a little bit closer than he otherwise might have done. But Pettit continues to lead, and we see some local yellows, and one of the BMWs was off of the racetrack there. This is very sketchy indeed. The Porsche Penske's are going to split Klaus Nyring right there. That looked pretty, but Klaus Nyring is, well, Code Brown moment almost right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming around that corner and then having one Porsche either side is can be a little bit scary.
No harm, no foul. Marco Badowski able to continue around without further incident. Same with Sirich as they are racing each other and trying to keep Keller behind them in the Peugeot. Van Driesch third in the Hypercar class with the Lamborghini. Faska still in fourth in the Peugeot. Rodriguez, no movement for them either. Still inside the top five in fifth place.
I know we were talking about pits and things earlier. At what point of the race, Jesse, do you think that we'll see the cars come in today?
Well, now that I know that there's no rain, well, if there was a threat of rain and we weren't sure, you'd go as long as you possibly could do, right? But considering we know that there isn't going to be rain, it's just going to be very British cloudy weather here today. I'm not on the British touring board, so I don't care. But yeah, it's very cloudy, but that's all it's going to be. I would come in halfway. There's no reason not to. Come in halfway and get what you need. Now, there will be a large contingent that still elect to come in at the last possible second and pit. The reason you come in at the midway point is you give yourself leeway room on the strategy. You sort of take the middle ground. If you come in too early or too late, you are making your bed, so to speak. But a lot of people are going to come in late because you can theoretically spend less time on pit lane, but because of the way that the virtual energy system works, that may not technically be the case. So my answer is come into the middle. Don't box yourself in unnecessarily. That all said, you're going to see a lot of people come in late.
Yeah, absolutely. There'll always be those people that want to stay out on the track and maximize their track time before they can get the yeah, I forgot what I was saying. That's really helpful, isn't it?
Well, Ryan Gill has taken the lead in LMGT3 over Dan Van Zutphen, and he is out of here. Ryan Gill showing us a little bit of that speed for the first time this season. Saw him in the pre-season sort of test race, the one-off at Sebring. Ryan Gill dominated. And when I say he dominated, I harp on this, and I do apologize, but I've got to tell you, I was quite convinced he was in an LMP2 car with a GT skin, is what I thought was going on there. It was absolutely insane, the pace that he had over the field. And he's, for the very first time, able to show that he's had 3 pretty terrible weeks. But he's not let it get to him. And he's continued to race around here. And he's finally able to flex his muscles, show us his legs out in front. Qualified up there. And now has retaken the spot some 16 or so minutes into the race when it happened. And he is leaving Dan Van Zutphen behind. 2.5 seconds already, the gap. Dan's got bigger issues behind them, Katrina, and that's because Grant Willemont's trying to take P2.
Yeah, it's deja vu a little bit for Dan with the BMW in his rearview mirror.
It's gonna have some kind of flashbacks after this. He's gonna be shell shocked, I think, is what's gonna happen. He's gonna see that red WRT BMW coming for him in his dreams tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. He's gonna be extra cautious not to make sure that they don't make contact when they pass and stuff, to make sure that he keeps hold of P3 if and when. And I say that as it looks like he's trying to make a move. He still keeps that second place at the minute.
You know, folks, I don't normally do this, but I'm going to do this on this occasion. Our broadcaster made a not advertiser-friendly noise, and I couldn't figure out what he was on about. We were on board with the Cadillac. That makes a very nice V8 noise, is what was going on there. But, well, thank goodness that wasn't audible to anybody but us. Katrina, you hear that noise much?
Sometimes.
All right, we're moving right along here. You see the Ryan Gill car continuing to lead Dan Van Zutphen, who just about kept Willemot behind in turn 5 or 6. That time, it's Valentine's Day. We'll let it go. Pettick and Kapslar continuing to fight in the hypercar class. Kapslar kept quite close up until the middle sector here, where he lost. Pettick was able to gap him by about 4/10 for some reason in the middle sector, but now it's coming back the way of the 83 Ferrari.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jesse, going back to that comment, I was just going to say every time Thomas hears the caddy, he makes that noise.
Yeah, unfortunately, I hear him make that noise quite a lot too. The disturbing part about it is I don't know if he knows his mic is on or not. Back to you, Katrina.
Yeah, and back to the race, Jesse.
Yes, certainly so. 20 minutes gone, 40 minutes left. You know, he could just mute us if he felt like it. If you know, that's the problem. He's the broadcaster. We have to listen to him for once. And you know, he's power tripping off of that probably. Who's to say we're not muted right now? All things considered. All jokes, of course, we thank Ted Edwards for being our broadcaster for LMU Fridays. And it's been a fun series to about the halfway point. Katrina, thank you so much for joining us for this series as well. We're all learning. We're learning a new sim. We're learning new names, new cars, new mechanics, new engineering as well with the virtual energy system, and of course, brand new racetracks. It's been a lot of fun.
It has been fun. It has. It's been very enjoyable, and I'm only just gonna be continually more excited for the rest of the season once we get back.
Certainly so. One of the best to ever do it, Martin Lawrence, the man we call Jesus, and he might as well be race car Jesus. I mean, his accreditation just stretches on for miles, so I'll spare you that. But just to, you know, he's the GOAT, if you will. Looking for a little BOP on Ryan Gill. Martin Lawrence says Iron Gill is OP. Yes, indeed. It is the case. I don't know what it is. Ryan Gill has never been a particularly bad sim racer in any respect, but he's never been a dominating driver. He's been a grinded out driver. He knows how to win, but the way that he's shown flashes in LMU is interesting. I think it just goes to show that there are courses for horses and there's sims for some drivers. They just click and it just makes sense, and they have a natural advantage. I think Ryan Gill has that advantage in LMU.
Yeah, absolutely, Jesse, and it just goes to show that, you know, maybe if you're not as confident in one of the other sims, you should definitely pick up a new sim like LMU and give it a go, because you never know if you're gonna gel.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but unless you try, you never know. Peter Varga knows his way up into 14th position, able to take that away from Jack McDonger, who had been coming to the front just a little bit there. Gained a couple of spots since last we spoke of them, but now loses a spot to Peter Varga, puts them back down to 15th. Varga up to 14th as there's a mini contingent of prancing horses back there for a few positions, separated by Becker, who's up to 16th. You're winning the bet, though, Katrina. That is where you thought Becker would be. That's where they qualified, and that is where they're racing. Holding their own, but what an excellent, I wouldn't even call it a guess. I feel like you had intuition on that one.
I don't know if it was intuition, Jesse, but we've seen how.
Oh, and he went in there and got him anyway. Marco Badowski very nearly got turned by the BMW, came back for seconds, and got absolutely pummeled and finished off Zombieland style, double tapped. Mikel Ramos has spun off all by themselves, highlighting the issue I mentioned earlier about the car being sort of loaded. He got on the throttle, and it all came undone. But the fifth place car in Hypercar, Badowski has been spun around. Mikel Ramos has also had issues in his Proton.
Yeah, it looks like Ramos decided to retire the car back to the pit for that one, so it'll be a DNF for him.
Well, it's very unfortunate there. Badowski is going to be asking some questions of how that happened. Just about got away with it on the first half, but got finished off there. Um, I mean, that's how you play FPSs, but that's not necessarily how you're supposed to do it in sim racing. BMW off again right there. We've seen, I think it's the same BMW, in fact, off in that section of the racetrack, or one similar a couple of times. Unsure what's going on in the corner, but grip, of course, not optimum, I would argue, here today. A lot of the drivers making it look quite a bit easier than it actually is. But you're seeing some of the nastier side. It sort of goes back to Bahrain a little bit. Track was cool, and it was sandy, obviously, being in the desert. Today we have a similar situation. Very overcast. It's not dark or anything, but it doesn't have to be. Cooler temperatures, tricky racetrack. Drivers are struggling in their own right more often than not. And you're right. I just seen it flash up for the first time. Well called by you. Ramos has retired that car.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely seems like we're having a bit of issue with people just, being able to keep control of their cars, maybe just pushing a bit too hard, or, like you say, not having the balance that they need on the track.
Well, there you have it. As we approach the halfway point in the race, and almost nobody, if anyone at all, coming down pit lane on their own recognizance, this might be the perfect time to tell you a little bit about our lovely partners. AK Esports, they provide our server solutions. For more on how they can help you, go to akesports.it today. Coach Dave Delta, Coach Dave Academy. They have LMU iRacing and ACC setups over there. All you got to do is visit our link, Coach Dave Delta, and get up to pace today with a setup for you. Thank you, Coach Dave. Green Man Gaming, I don't need to introduce them. They are the GOAT. They are the shop to go to if you're looking for discounts on all the hottest games. Have a star deal out right now, I've just realized, for Red Dead Redemption 2 Ultimate Edition. That's normally a $100 $100 game, the Ultimate Edition of Red Dead Redemption 2. You can get it right now for less than $20. 83% off of Red Dead Redemption 2. And I'm going to tell you something about that game. Get tissues. It's sad. It's an amazing game. It's a beautiful game, but it's also very sad. What a wonderful narrative and score in that game. I highly recommend it. And if you've never played Red Dead Redemption 2, what's wrong with you? So it is just a great game. What are you? You don't like the Wild West? What is that? Kind of weird, right? Star deal, 83% off on that. Civ 7 came out this week as well. Saw a deal on that. And I believe I just saw Metal Gear Solid Delta just got an official release date. I think it comes out August the 20-something of this year. You can get 25% off your pre-order over at Green Man Gaming. A lot of deals. Looking really great. Matt Malcolm into the pit lane. This is their sort of required stop. Not required by us here at RCI, but required by the virtual energy system. Down and gone in the spirit of the race, 155. Moza Racing. Moza Racing is a fantastic shop for direct drive racing peripherals that don't break the bank. Go check out all of their hardware options over at Moza Racing. Shout out to Motorsport UK. We became a recommended esports community over at Motorsports UK. Thank them very much for that. It's very prestigious indeed. And last but certainly not least, IMB Racewear. Custom gloves. We may even have custom gloves of our own here in the near future, but get your own custom gloves at IMB Racewear. 83% off, Katrina. I'm going back to Green Man Gaming. 83% off one of the greatest games ever made. Less than $20. That'd be about 15 quid, I think, for you lot. That is ridiculous value. And the Ultimate Edition, not the Standard Edition, the Ultimate Edition.
Yeah, it's definitely a great deal, Jesse. Definitely someone who's never played that game before.
It's got horses, and it's got tragedy, and it's got like their guns, right? All right, and there's some other stuff in there that isn't advertiser friendly, but we'll gloss over that. Look at this racing in the middle of the pack here. The Ferrari in the background, not necessarily a factor right now with the two McLarens going side by side. Lindner trying their very best here. Klaus Nyring waits in the wings. Verstappen also involved. I'm pretty sure that, no, that's not Verstappen involved. Sure, or is it? Hard to tell. Hard to tell when the cars are identical. No, it's Van Zutphen is who it is. It's Dan Van Zutphen in that 95, not Verstappen in the other 95. You will have to forgive us when the cars look the same. Very close here, 3 wide. That almost never works, but they've just about figured it out at the top of Portimao. Oh, but they haven't figured it out in turn 13. And there's a waved yellow flag, and they're still going 3 wide. They're all over each other. You know it's Valentine's Day when they're all over each other like that.
Yeah, they definitely are all over each other. No one really wanted to give up any space there at all.
I'm not throwing you off. I do apologize. Klaus Nyring in the 155 in 5th place. They're going to continue their run here as pit stops will continue. They'll become more frequent as more time comes off of the clock. Remember, Matt Malcolm was down in the other 155. Klaus Nyring has not been in the pit lane thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. But whilst we were in the pit lane, and whilst I'm thinking about it in my brain, I'm going to say it, that I'm pretty sure that Ted on the camera showed us the energy for the hypercars.
Is it working now? Is that graphic working? Let's see if we can't. Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. We've got working graphics. So we've been unable up until this point to show you this because it hasn't been working. But apparently they have added it in the game. Well done, Studio 397. It's not the WEC graphic, but it makes little difference. This is what we call the virtual energy system. This is how the hybrid in both classes of car today deploys its extra power through an electrical engine. But what this is showing you is how much energy you have left. If you've ever watched Formula E, you'll be familiar with a similar style graphic. 100% means it's full. It obviously can go down all the way to 0. If it does go to 0, there is a penalty incurred for finishing the race without or running out of energy entirely. You can see on this graphic the energy system does not work. But in the other graphic, it does. Basically, they do not have enough virtual energy or boost energy to make it to the end, so they have to come into pit lane and stop in the box. They're not actually adding any electricity into the car, Katrina. All they're doing is it's signaling to the car that this is a new stint, give them 100% power back. It's an efficiency thing rather than a actual energy limitation thing that both the classes deal with. And now that the graphic works, we can show you several cars have used more. They've been more aggressive. Peter Vargas down at 29%. The leaders on both 33. Nobody has more than Becker, who has 37%. Actually, I'm incorrect. Whittle has 40% down there at the bottom. Now, I don't think it'll ever happen. But if somebody figures out a way to go an hour without having to come in and make it worth it, as far as being time efficient, it would be immense. You would basically eliminate a drive-through penalty from your stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, Jesse, it's one of those things. At the minute, we know that every car needs to come in, but if there was ever a time that someone did work out how, then you alleviate having to come into the pit, which saves time and obviously puts you ahead of others that maybe do not know how to manage the car in the same way.
Our broadcaster Ted has pointed out something that he thinks is going on. He thinks that our leader overall, David Pettick in the EAF Corsa Ferrari, is clutching the car. Now, we don't have a graphic for the clutch because you really don't use that here. But for whatever reason, we think that it could be the graph going to halfway is a bit of a graphical glitch on the WEC HUD. But very interesting indeed. I can't imagine why they'd be doing that unless they are trying to save energy, but down at 30% now. There's no way they can make it to the end, presumably. So I don't know if that would help anyway. But yeah, so in a for those familiar with street cars, you typically have two pedals, gas and a brake, or if you're my wife, you only have a gas pedal. But most people have a gas and a brake pedal. And if you are from 1912, you have something called a clutch pedal, and that's how you shift gears. Now, these cars don't really have that, but if you have a clutch set up, you can clutch in and coast the car. The reason you would do that in real life is it is fuel efficient. So our broadcaster seems to think that's happening. To what end, we have no clue.
Well, Jesse, I never knew that was a thing, but now I do know. And now I'm thinking, is that the reason that, first and second are sitting up in first and second?
Now, that is an excellent point you just made. And I've got to say, there's always innovation in sim racing, Katrina. The sim is never as simple as it seems. We had the rake and yaw and everything in ACC, you may recall. Could they be stumbling on something here that is giving them a unique advantage? Because they do have more energy than just about anybody else that they would have been racing, barring Roche and Sirik, who have the same. Are they discovering a way to save some of that energy? I wonder.
Possibility. It is a possibility. And it's exciting to watch from this side because obviously this is all new to us, so we definitely wouldn't have known that unless Ted picked it up.
Yeah, I didn't notice it either. I haven't raced enough in LMU to have picked that up, and also I wouldn't have been smart enough to even consider that in a car that does not require a clutch. I'm sure it has a manual clutch or an electric manual clutch for reasons. I think most race cars do. They have like a little button on the floor or something, or at least they did at one point. I think GT3s have it, for instance. But I mean, even Formula cars have it when you hold both paddles together. But it can be mapped, I'm pretty sure. But I have no idea outside of energy harvesting or sort of energy conservation why that would be a thing. But if so, could our broadcaster have just stumbled on potentially a new strategy in this game? My mind is racked right now trying to figure out what you get out of that, if anything. They could just be testing. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. As we see Matt Malcolm just come back into the pits, it looks like he repaired some damage that he had.
Very good catch. We did see that was the second pit stop for Matt Malcolm in the Spirit of the Race, one of the Spirit of the Race 155s we have in the field. Callum Kerrigan's joined us in chat to say shout out to the missus watching her first RCI race today. Mrs. Kerrigan, I do desperately apologize for myself and Mr. Ted Edwards on the broadcast. I don't apologize for Katrina. She's been lovely. But I do apologize for us. Sorry this is your first, but hello and welcome to RCI TV. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Katrina on the commentary. Ted Edwards bringing you the cameras. And might I say, your husband is lovely to work with. We love Callum around here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always nice seeing people pop into the chat and say hello, Mrs. Kerrigan.
Aw. What I am surprised about is that it's a broadcast that Callum's not on. I guess maybe she gets enough of him at home.
Yeah, maybe. I find it hard to watch Ted on a broadcast when I can hear him racing in the other room, to be fair, so...
Oh, that's a good point. That is a good point. I like that. I've never considered that, really, but you've made the ultimate mistake, and you've entered in a broadcasting contract that puts you in not only the same room, but again, where you have to listen to him. Are you a mad woman, perhaps?
Yeah, probably.
Well, you're with Ted, so that kind of already is self-answering question, I'm afraid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Racing here, Jack McDonger up to 12th for the time being. Is got Miguel Martins fighting him in the Proton Porsche, and they are absolutely going at it here for the 11th place, or excuse me, the 12th place spot. I'm forced to believe that a couple of the hypercars have come into pit at some point, and that's why they're elevated ever so slightly. And if that isn't the case, then these two have been making incredible headway through the field. Nevertheless, the fight for 12th place absolutely on. Jack McDonger is able to withstand the storm on this lap at least, and actually gaps Miguel Martins a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we have seen many people go into the pit so far, Jesse. So I think this might be where they are on the track, and they have just seemed to have had good pace and been able to take advantage of places on the track.
Certainly so. Ryan Gill continues to dominate in LMGT3 over Grant Willamont. Dan Van Zutphen has shuffled back to third, but that situation with Lindner has stabilized with Klaus Neiring in fifth place, quite close to Lindner actually fighting for that place. Not quite close enough, but close enough indeed. Pettit and Kapsar have never been more than 2 seconds apart from each other this entire race, and it's not that much further back to Van Driesch. If those two Ferraris did get to racing, Van Driesch would be up there in a matter of a lap or two if they got stuck side by side. You'll recall earlier in the broadcast mentioning that this is a one groove racetrack, and if you're out of it, you are hemorrhaging time. There is no sort of second line here most of the time due to the nature of the switchback nature and the flat and the blind corners. It's a lot to take in this particular racetrack. It's not. If this was a video game, this would be the adept difficulty. This particular racetrack to put you in the mind of how unforgiving this place is. So if Pettit and Kapslar get racing, Van Driesch is going to be there almost instantaneously. Fazekiss and Rodriguez further out, of course. And this is the total running. We have, well, 15 according to that board, but there's probably more cars still on the lead lap. We had 18 hypercars, and I think we still have the majority of them turning. Yeah, we only have one retirement, and that was Ramos in the number 12 earlier on. So no big drama here today, I think, is the huge takeaway. We've seen one incident between the classes, but a lot of single car spins otherwise.
I'm pretty sure I just saw Durish in the background just have a little spin out just then.
Nope, you're absolutely right. You've absolutely called it, Katrina, because Zeno Van Driesch is in fourth place now. Barnabas Fazekiss has been promoted up to third place. Well spotted, didn't even see it.
So I just caught it by the little green in the background. It's funny because we were just talking about them being only like seconds behind, and being able to take that place back if you're up there, even if you're not contending and battling the whole way around. Sometimes it's just keeping your head in the game on the track, and others' mistakes means gains for you.
Here is the energy, the virtual energy on the cars, 18% for the top two drivers. I love that this graphic works now, and they'll run that down. If you're leading this race, there's no reason to come in early. Not really. I mean, if you didn't come in at halfway, there's no reason to come in now. You've made your bed. As I said earlier, you're going to lie in it. And Pettit and Kapslar are likely going to take it down to the nitty gritty here. Probably a couple of percentage left. You don't want to run it completely out. I think you get a penalty immediately if you hit zero. You have to enter the pit lane on 1%. So they will get as close as you like and come in probably in the final couple of laps. Their cars behind them, though, who have less energy, don't have that advantage, and they will certainly probably come down a little bit earlier than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, maybe we see the people that are running, a good 7% less come in first and set that pit stop, and get back out on the track before even the leaders think about entering the pits to do their stop.
Well, while we have a moment in the action here, just keeping you updated on the RCI racing calendar. Did you know that we're racing on 3 different sims currently? We got iRacing Championship coming up, LMU, which you're currently watching right now. And if you're not, what kind of weird third dimension are you coming from, interstellar style? We also race on ACC. You see that competition on Monday. And of course, the finale of the RCI Esports Series tomorrow from Barcelona, the final 6-hour race. We're going to hand out a lot of money and trophies for the Esports Series tomorrow. Already up on the YouTube channel. Hit reminder for that and join us live sometime around noon, 11:30 a.m. British time for that live stream, 6 hours uninterrupted at Barcelona. We also have other series, iRacing IMSA Endurance Series. That championship starts the 1st of March, and we are at Sebring for the first round. Then we go to Daytona, Laguna Seca, Watkins Glen, Road America, Indianapolis, and Road Atlanta. It basically follows the IMSA series schedule and the race length. So it's an endurance series. You're going to see drivers or teams with multiple drivers in it, and you could sign up for that by going to racerci.com. Also announced for iRacing is the Sebring 6-hour race, a one-off event also happening as well. A couple of championships in ACC wrapping up. Still time to join us for the finale for the Deutschland Masters Championship on Monday, going to the Nürburgring Nordschleife for 60 minutes for the finale. I think it's 60 minutes for the finale, unless they've upped it to... No, it is 90. I'm glad I checked. It is a 90-minute finale for the Deutschland Masters on Monday. And you can still sign up and be on the grid for that. German manufacturers only for that series. They've been around the world. They're back in Germany around the Nordschleife. And you can sign up and join us there. Night Owl keeps trucking along as well. Barcelona this weekend, as it turns out. Night Owl Season 20 continuing late night on Saturday. And if you like LMU, if you want to try your hand at that, well, we're not done. We're only halfway done at the conclusion of tonight's race. We're going to be in Sebring next week for round number 5. You got LMU? Come join us. Sign up racerci.com. Get all the information there. Join the Discord. More series. Are we not? Okay, so we're doing a halftime break. So we are not here next week for LMU. So you got 2 weeks to get on the grid for that. More stuff coming. And I can't really announce it quite yet, but I do know that there are Genettas. The Genetta Cup is coming back on Monday. One of my favorite series we do, and one of the very few series I actually raced in back in the day here on RCI TV.
I think Thomas has just told me that the World Tour vote is up for the 24-hour race as well, so anybody that's interested that wants to have a say in what track that they go to for that should make sure they join the Discord.
Okay, World Tour 2025 has been announced. I didn't quite clock that myself, but it's been announced. I mean, it was never not going to happen, the World Tour for 2025, but I didn't want to... Well, Ryan Gill's winning this race currently, right? And I didn't want to upset him, but World Tour has been announced, and you have a say, as you have done in the previous years, of what the 24-hour race is ran. If it was up to me, I would put it at Watkins Glen and just leave it there, but it's not up to me. It's up to you, the community. But if you're cool, if you want to be cool, it's Watkins Glen. Come on.
Do we see Klaus Nyring back into the pits again?
Klaus Nyring to the attention of his team, down and gone. And I believe that's his first stop that he's done. Yeah, it is. He has not made any headway, but he's not lost anything as more cars coming in. Phil Vick in the WRT car. They're going to move him so he gets a cleaner run out of the pit lane. Must be pitting next to somebody else's box, even though they weren't in it. That is cool how the sim will rotate the car so you have a clean exit from pit lane if there's another car, even if it's not actually there. If there's a box that a car could occupy, it lets you go through. Pettit, Capslar continue to lead around, having the most energy of anyone. 6% for Phase Kiss, 5 for Kierton. It's getting quite close. They're going to be considering coming down this time by.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of like having this graphic because we can kind of predict when they're going to come into the pits and when they aren't.
It absolutely helps us out a lot. We've been guessing the previous 3 weeks. We don't have to this week. It's kind of obvious what is going on with at least the hypercar field. The LMGT3s have virtual energy as well, but it's different in a technical way, and I am not an electrical engineer, and I dare not attempt to explain how it works. I got the basic premise of it, but it is technically different from the hypercar class, though the system implementation in the series, what you have to do is the same. Van Driesch has 22% energy left. What do you make of that?
Well, we've seen them come into the pit, right? So maybe that's how much they've topped up, 22% to get them to the end of the race.
Right, you are. 63 has been down the pit lanes. Other cars coming in as well. Saw Kierton, Rodriguez, Badowski all pitting together, 5th, 6th, and 7th, respectively. Now Nico Kwiesma has brought the number 15 BMW down into the pit lane. Keller, of course, we sort of expected this. Phase Kiss not coming in. That's very close indeed. They may have about 1 or 2% when they come in. This time here is the Peugeot Total Energies 94. Barnabas Phase Kiss behind the wheel. They've got 4%. They might get here with 2, but they're certainly cutting it close. Everybody else erring on the side of caution here a little bit. It hasn't gone down. It's still 4 on this lap. Sorry, Katrina, you were saying.
I was going to say absolutely, but maybe they know something we don't know. Maybe they know how fast it eats through and at what points.
I would certainly hope they have a better idea of how it works themselves. It certainly hasn't gone down. Sirich's did, so the graphic is working. They've done the better part of half a lap, and it hasn't gone down, but they are also calling it quits. They will come down the pit lane to the attention of their team, pitting out of 3rd place for the time being. 5% for the 2 leaders. Here is Maciej Sirik, who I would assume is going to come down pit lane themselves in the Porsche Penske, one of the many Porsche Penskes, and does. So Van Driesch, we see that they had 22%. They only added enough to get to the end of the race, which, I mean, why would you overfill? Christoph Westrepe has pitted out of the top 5 in LMGT3 and just got past there by one of the Spirit of the Race 155s, assuming it's not Malcolm. Ryan Gill continues to lead Willemon and Van Zutphen. Billy Octane's going to pit as well. And that means, according to my math, don't trust it, the only 2 cars that haven't pitted out of the hypercar class are your 2 leaders now. And confirmed by the graphic, I got one right.
Yeah, absolutely. The 2 out front had slightly more energy than the rest, so they're, I'm guessing, just going to push it until they get down to, the last couple of percentage before they come in and do their pits, which is now.
Right on cue. Pettit and Capslar are both in with a couple of percent of energy left to go, 2 or 3 at the very best. That will conclude the cycle of stops for the hypercar class. And for the first week, in many weeks, no split tires. We saw what we presume several cars running a hard front left tire in mediums the rest of the way around. We saw that for several weeks with the Michelins. Not the case this week. Everyone sticking to 4 mediums all the way around. No dramas for either pit stop there. Pettick away cleanly. Adam Kapslar the very same.
Yeah, absolutely. Um we did see the tires being brought into effect, but obviously this week they've decided that they've not getting any benefit from having different tires on the car.
It could be too that the track's more balanced. It's a clockwise circuit, but there's so many left-hand turns that it might balance out, and there's no benefit to doing it, or they may have pulled the plug on the experiment. Now, this is what a BMW looks like when you buy it from the factory, but that is a problem because that is not a factory BMW. That is a race car. It should have a GT wing on it, and it doesn't.
Yeah, it looks like Andy, who has been struggling in his BMW the whole of the race pretty much with pace, seems to have had an incident somewhere on the track.
Certainly has. Talked at length that it's easy to knock body panels off in LMU, and they've certainly backed it into something and removed the wing entirely. And I can tell you from experience, folks, that it handles a bit like putting a possum in a bag and then taking that bag on a Ferris wheel. It's uncomfortable. I don't know why you would do that, but I think you take my point.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Possum, Ferris wheel, bad.
I thought you were agreeing with the analogy. You were agreeing that nobody should do that. Nobody should. Hi, I'm Jesse Lee from RCI. If you're thinking about taking your pet possum, putting it in a bag, and then joining a Ferris wheel at your local fair, don't do it. It's always a bad idea. I'm being helpful, Katrina. Public service stuff.
Yeah, that is true, as we see Louis Curtin run really wide there.
Louis Curtin is in a little bit of a fight with Sirich here, and he may well lose the spot. Richard Whittle's been off of the racetrack, a little bit of circuit safari. That car not for position, different lap. Maciej Sirich, who I believe was in front of Louis Curtin at one point, now finds himself back behind. And even with the off track by Curtin, was unable to take advantage of that fully. And they've got to be careful if they get to racing a little bit too hard. Rodriguez and the Alpine right behind them, not out of that fight.
Yeah, absolutely. With 3 minutes left of this race, you're going to want to make sure that you just being careful, being cautious, but erring on the side of not being overtaken because you're being slightly too cautious.
Been very close up at the front of the Hypercar field today. Pettick and Kapslar have kept it around 1.5 seconds, and I'm sure that's by design by Pettick, and I'm sure that has frustrated Kapslar, unable to completely close down. Has been under a second several times, but not nearly close enough to do the deed. But they have left the rest of the Hypercar field. Facekiss up in third after the Van Driesch incident that you so sharply caught. Van Driesch has not been able to recapture P2. And here we are, the final 2.5 minutes of the race, just enough time for 2 more laps. Dan Van Zutphen here, who led early, down to third place. He has spent most of his time in third now. Klaus Nyring, not really a threat to them right now. They're looking like another solid day. Don, who did not sound the most confident coming into today's race, said he was worried about Grant Willemont. And, well, considering that's one of the 2 cars in front of him, feel like he was right to say so.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm hoping that he's going to be happy with his overall performance, and holding on to hopefully P3 here will be huge for someone who was not so confident in their car going into the start of the race.
It's absolutely excellent. I don't know how you could be upset with third place unless your name's Lewis Hamilton. Then again, I think everything upsets that man, so I'm unsure.
Probably right.
Final few moments here of today's race. Just want to take this time to thank all of you for joining us, whether you watched it live or watched it back on repeat. Thank you so much for being with us on your Friday, and we hope that you enjoy what's left of your Valentine's Day. And we invite you, of course, to come back tomorrow about 11:30 a.m. UK time to watch the final round of the RCI 6-hour esports championship. Got some hardware and some prize money, and I mean a lot of prize money to hand out in that series tomorrow. Be myself and Ted Edwards joining you on comms with Dewey behind the cameras. Going to get nice and cozy on a Saturday. Hopefully see a really good race at Barcelona as well. Still though, got some final things to hand out and deal with here. And this is one of them, the fight for the lead that's never really gone away. Capslar has pushed the pace a little bit, has gained more than half a second in the past lap or so, and Pettit can't let off here. And we're going to have one more extra lap. This was horrible at Bahrain. It caught so many people out. I doubt we're in the same situation today, but the fight is on for the win overall here.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw it be an issue with like slowing down at the start finish, but like you say, Pettit couldn't do that here. So we are going for one more race where Kaspar has the chance to take the number one spot away.
Les Stevenson has joined us late. Les, you've joined at the exact most appropriate time whenever there's hardware to be handed out. Pettit leads Capslar, half a second between them. Lap traffic not necessarily getting out of the way. There's contact. Pettit has contact with the BMW. He's nearly being spun. Here comes Capslar. Capslar around the outside. Capslar off of the racetrack. The feud with the lapped BMW and LMG T3 has cost Pettit here dearly. Capslar is going to go to the lead, but he's going wide. Contact in the background. Absolute battle him on the last lap. Capslar allows Pettit back through, and I wonder if that's friends playing nicely right there, or was that Capslar realizing that was not a fair way to lose the race? Either way, the sportsmanship between these two, absolutely incredible, and I have no idea what started that incident between the two of them. Luckily, Pettit did not go around. David will come across the line in the AF Corsa 51 to win it, but in dramatic, high drama fashion, Capslar second. It's a Ferrari 1-2, Fazekiss P3 in the Total Energies Peugeot. Van Driesch settles for fourth in the Lamborghini. Peter Roche, the top scoring Alpine, will come home in fifth. Phil Vick, who I believe was in a top 5 spot, was the car involved with the Hypercar leader right there. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, very, very intense last race, but it's fantastic to see Kaspar giving him back that space, knowing that, maybe it wasn't taken in quite the racing fashion.
My goodness. Car streaming across. Ryan Gill, though, what can you say about him? Had the pole, lost it on the initial start, drove back through the podium positions, and for what has been a frustrating season where they have been put on the back foot every step of the way, today is their day again, a winner again, and this time in a championship round for Ryan Gill. Grant Wilmot returns to form with a brilliant P2. Dan Van Zutphen will get credit for third place today. Another podium for the young Dutch driver. Klaus Nijring and Christoph Verstappen round out the top 5 in the LMG T3 category, and what was a brilliantly ran race, more akin to Bahrain than the 2 rounds in the middle, it has to be said. Cars crashing all over the place. Celebratory trips to the infield care center, as we say where I'm from. Les Stevenson is with us because his wife has a headache. Do you ever notice that she gets one right as you walk in the door? It's weird that. Do you have any comment on that, Katrina?
Sometimes we just get headache.
You know I'm not buying that. I want to. Your partner says that he is the headache. He accepts that he is the headache. And I also accept that he is the headache in your relationship. Here is the results pending post race penalty. Starting off with Hypercar. I'm just kidding, by the way. If you take anything I say seriously, you're doing it wrong. David Pettick wins it just today. 39 laps and high drama on the last lap with a LMGT3 car. Still wins it over Capslar after the 83 lets them back through. But it was close nonetheless all day. Well done to Adam and David putting on a show. Barnabas Facekiss third, Van Driesch fourth, Roche in fifth. Louis Kierton, another strong run in sixth. Maciej Sirik, Michel Rodriguez, Marco Badowski, Nico Kuzma, the top 10 at Algarve. Nicholas Keller, Jack McDonger, who actually came through the field a little bit. I think they qualified 15th or so. Got several of those spots made up. Miguel Martins, Billy Octane in 14th. John Becker, one of the hypercar additions, the only Cadillac in the field, proving that Katrina was absolutely right with her intuition there. Peter Varga, Richard Withel, your finishers. The only retirement in today's entire race, Mikel Ramos. From Hypercar to LMGT3, Ryan Gill returns to form. Grant Willemot does the same, both in the 31 WRT BMW. Dan Van Zutphen takes home third place, another podium for them. Two on the trot. Klaus Neyring, Christoph Ostrepa, the top five. Lindner, Vic Watts, Beckett, Malcolm are the 10 cars, and I believe there's an 11th. And there is. Andy Cotton struggled today, but still manages to finish the race. Well, we have Dan Van Zutphen with us. He led a little bit today. Dan, you told us that you were worried about Grant Willemot a little bit, and maybe you didn't have the ultimate confidence that you would have had a week ago, but still a brilliant podium. Talk us through your race, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, congratulations to Ryan. I definitely did not have Ryan on my bingo card today, so congrats to him. Grant, again, also drove great. The two lads behind me drove great, pressured me all race. It was really hard today. It was definitely not as easy as Fuji. I have no clue why. Not to take any honor away from Ryan and Grant, but the BMW was clearly the fastest car today. We saw it in practice, race pace, couldn't touch him, to be honest, couldn't touch the BMWs. It was fun nonetheless. Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult race. I grabbed my steering wheel a bit too hard, given my hands aren't comfortable at the moment. Still happy with the podium. I think that's almost the maximum. It could have maybe had P2. It was close in the end, but fastest McLaren today, so I'll take that.
Dan, some people have it all. You may be one of them. Handsome, great race car driver, excellent
wow.
commentator, conversationalist, and on top of that, humility to boot. Dan, anyone you want to shout out?
Well, everyone working with me, Mexico Racing Team, and like last time, you beautiful people in the broadcasting team as well as the organizers.
There's a lot of love going around
Yeah,
today.
it's
It must be a
Valentine's
holiday. It
Day.
must be a holiday or something
Yeah.
out here. Dan, congratulations. Two
Thank
races
you.
you've been in, two podiums. Absolute epic job. We hope to see you back next week.
Yeah, definitely.
From Dan Van Zutphen on the third step of the podium to Ryan Gill. Ryan, you won the race, but it wasn't that simple. You had the pole, you got sent back a little bit in the pack, had to drive back through the podium positions. Did you ever lose heart at all, or sort of did you know that you had that extra pace based on qualifying speed?
No, I did not know that I had that extra pace, but I'm really, really glad I did. After like 3 consecutive weeks of troubles on the on the starting grid, had really weird thing where the hypercar in front of me was slowing down going towards the start of the race, so I kind of had to let off a bit, and Dan pretty much started ahead of me by the time the green lights went out, so that wasn't great. And then I got beat into turn 1 as well, which was even less enthusiastic. So I was thinking, oh, finally I don't get troubles on the start of technical issues and all sorts, and now I'm shuffled back to P3, and that might be it. But no, had pace. Took a couple of laps for the car to switch itself on a bit, because it's absolutely horrendous around here on cold tires for that first lap. But yeah, the once the tires switched on, just managed to keep it consistent. There was a couple of mistakes from I think it was Sabox and Dan that allowed me to kind of close in a bit quicker than I probably would have otherwise. But once I got past, it was just a case of how well can I manage the traffic to try and make a gap. And I don't know, I think 10 seconds at the end of the race seems like I did a pretty good job of that.
Ryan, you've been beaten down every which way that you could do in this championship, and it certainly we had you circled as the favorite in LMGT3 with Grant Willamont. It hadn't panned out that way, really, has it? It's been one frustrating and mysterious sort of complication after another. Today, though, we've assured everyone every week that you had the pace, that you had the ability, and that you were capable of winning these races. Today, it just seemed like a Ryan Gill kind of day at a difficult racetrack. You're able to shine. Same thing at Sebring as well. Difficult racetrack, but you're able to put it together. Is it vindicating a little bit? Be like, look, I knew I could do this, and now you have pole position, fought back through the field, and won it in brilliant fashion.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to finally be able to put that hard work in public, I guess, because I race in 3 other leagues every week in LMU as well, so I've had plenty of practice, and more often than not, I've been on the second step of the podium rather than the top. So um, I think it's something ridiculous, like 10 second places out of 13 races or something absurd that I've had over the past like 2-3 months. But yeah, finally happy, at least in RCI, to put it back on the top step again. I mean, just happy to be on the podium in general after how this season has started. Obviously, almost got onto the podium after the horrendous start that we had at Bahrain, but just a bit short. So yeah, it feels good to be on the top step. We've got a week off next week, so use that to recharge the batteries, and I'm just going to be hoping that for the second half of the season, that's the last of the technical gremlins on the start, and maybe I can mount a challenge towards the top 3 for the end of the season.
Well, we've seen other drivers already do that, having a bad couple of opening rounds. I don't see why it couldn't be you. And we go to your track that you destroyed the field at last year. We're going to Sebring in 2 weeks' time. Still time to sign up and join us for LMU Fridays here in 2 weeks' time at Sebring. We'd love to have you. Hypercar and LMGT3 are open. Ryan, before we let you go, anyone you want to shout out, anyone you want to thank?
Had Billy Octane and Jack McDonger with me in comms for the race, so they
I
were
said
in
thank,
Hypercar.
not a cost.
Had them in comms with me, so they kept me entertained whilst I was mostly out there on my own for a lot of the race. So that helped me, not get a bit too distracted and not lose my focus. So I guess thank you for them, but also thank you to everyone here at RCI that kind of makes everything possible. I know that I do my fair bit around here as well, but I'm very detached from the day-to-day running. So whether it's you guys in the broadcast team, the stewards that will be looking at the incidents post-race, or anyone else who kind of makes everything run around here, just obviously thank you, and we'll keep going at it. 2025 will be a big year.
We did have a joke, Ryan, that if Don and you had an incident, Dan was fired, or maybe I'd pay him a large sum of money if he wrecked you on purpose. But luckily, that didn't happen, and it was a brilliant race. We got so much love for both you and Don coming in from the chat. Congratulations, though, Ryan. A well-deserved win today, showing them how it's done. Congrats. Well, Ryan Gill, the winner today. Katrina, we said for weeks we sounded like a broken record a little bit. Ryan can do this. Ryan's the early favorite. Today, finally, we got to see, everyone else got to see what we could see from the jump. Ryan Gill, pole victory, looking for a championship podium by the end of the season, and I would not put it past him with half the season left to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think this will be the last that we see of Ryan up there at the front of the pack.
Well, folks, that's going to just about do it from us today on LMU Fridays. But don't despair if you are not tired of me yet. Well, we have more broadcast this week. The finale, the 6 hours of Barcelona, the finale for the RCI Esports Series, uh, half 11 UK time. We're going to go live tomorrow to bring you all 6 hours covered to the championship finale and some hardware and some prize money to be handed out at the end to boot. Close championship in a lot of respects over there. We'll bring you all the updates and run down how they line up when we go live tomorrow morning. For now, though, we thank you all for watching us here this evening. We hope you have a very pleasant evening and a very pleasant weekend as well. Next broadcast tomorrow. We'll see you again on Monday for ACC Racing as well. But on behalf of everyone here at RCI, I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Katrina and Ted Edwards. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, have a good night.